The wind arrives first. It is not the gentle breeze that stirs the summer grass, but something else entirely. It is a living, invisible force that strips the heat from your skin and drives microscopic ice crystals through any microscopic gap in your clothing. Imagine standing on a treeless plain, a landscape larger than the entirety of Western Europe, where the temperature plummets to minus 50 degrees Celsius. That is nearly 100 degrees below freezing. In an environment this extreme, human flesh can sustain permanent, irreversible damage in a matter of minutes. There is nowhere to hide, no modern infrastructure to retreat to, and no rescue coming. Yet, for over 1,000 years, families did more than just hide in this frozen expanse. They thrived. They built homes that could vanish with the sunrise and reappear before the sunset. They engineered mobile fortresses designed not for modern comfort, but for something far more precious, the absolute preservation of human life through the most punishing winters on Earth. Welcome, I am Jack. Today, we are journeying deep into the history of the Mongolian steppe. We are uncovering the lost science, the brilliant aerodynamics, and the delicate biological mathematics that allowed an ancient people to survive the Zud, the catastrophic winter that buries entire herds. This is not a story of primitive camping. This is a masterclass in extreme environmental engineering. Stay with us until the end, because the way the Mongols conquered the cold will change everything you thought you knew about human resilience. Part 1. The architecture of the landscape, the October retreat. By the time October paints the steppe in brittle shades of brown and gold, the Mongol herder must undergo a profound transformation. He is no longer just a shepherd. He becomes a meteorologist, a surveyor, and a landscape architect. The race against the coming winter has officially begun. The decision of where to construct the winter camp, known as the Odig, dictates absolutely everything that will follow. If the herder calculates wrong, the wind will find his family. The snow will bury his shelter. The cold will claim not just human lives, but the hundreds of sheep, goats, and horses that form the bedrock of their entire physical and economic world. To the untrained, modern eye, the steppe appears as an endless, uniform ocean of rolling grasslands stretching far beyond every visible horizon. It looks flat, empty, and exposed. But to eyes trained by generations of survival, the landscape reveals critical, life-saving variations. The herder looks for subtle depressions in the earth, minor valleys that alter the flow of the wind. They seek out rock outcroppings that can act as natural barricades. Most importantly, they practice numur, the art of finding the shadow of the mountain. The ideal winter ground lies in a shallow basin or on the protected, southern face of elevated terrain. Here, the lethal, high-velocity winds sweeping down from Siberia will pass directly overhead, deflected by the natural geological barriers. The southern exposure is not a coincidence. It is a calculated solar strategy. The southern face captures every possible degree of radiant warmth from the low-hanging winter sun. The solar gain is absolutely critical for both human comfort and the survival of the livestock. In this mathematical equation of survival, even a temperature shift of 2 or 3 degrees can mean the difference between snow that melts enough to expose edible grass and snow that remains a frozen, impenetrable barrier to grazing. Water determines the second absolute requirement for the camp, even when frozen solid. A stream or a small river provides the only reliable source of hydration for hundreds of animals and humans. Winter camps must be meticulously positioned within walking distance of these ice-locked lifelines, where daily labor chopping through the thick surface ice can access the flowing, frigid water beneath. Timing this migration is a high-stakes gamble that requires reading subtle atmospheric patterns. Inherited across centuries, families utilize the final, fleeting weeks of autumn to aggressively fatten their herds on the remaining grass. They watch the sky for the specific cloud formations that precede the first major blizzards. If they move to the winter camp too early, valuable grazing time on the open steppe is permanently lost, leaving the animals with fewer fat reserves. If they move too late, heavy snow accumulation could entirely block the routes to the winter ground, trapping the herds in the open plains where they will inevitably succumb to starvation. And the elements. The movement itself is a highly coordinated, careful retreat. Thousands of animals are driven across miles of increasingly hostile, freezing terrain to reach the pre-selected refuge before the steppe turns fully lethal. Archaeological evidence, including ancient hearths and compacted earth, suggests that these specific winter camp locations were used repeatedly across decades, even centuries. They were chosen, protected, and maintained by families who understood that the geographical knowledge of safe ground was infinitely more valuable than any physical possession they could carry. By late November, as the first serious, blinding storms begin to approach, the strategic withdrawal is complete. They have found the shadow of their mountain. Now comes the even more critical task, constructing a fortress that can be moved on the back of a... Part 2. The Living Circle Engineering the Camp. A single jur, the traditional Mongolian yurt standing isolated and alone on the winter steppe, would not easily survive a serious, multi-day storm. The true genius of Mongol winter survival lay not merely in the individual shelters, but in their collective, geometric arrangement. It was the transformation of separate, independent dwellings into a unified, highly engineered defensive system. The winter camp formation was formerly called a kiri, which translates to circle. But this was no casual, accidental arrangement of tents. The precise positioning of each family's jur followed strict thermodynamic principles refined across centuries of Arctic-level survival. The structures formed a tight, calculated circle or a U-shape. The doors were always constructed to face south or southeast. This was a dual-purpose design. It avoided the prevailing, punishing winds coming from the north and northwest, while simultaneously capturing the maximum possible sunlight entering through the doorway. During the brief daylight hours, the physical spaces between the individual structures were minimized to the absolute limit, creating an almost continuous, unbroken wall of thick felt and wood. The circular fortress acted as a massive baffle. It blocked the wind at ground level, where the moving air carried the most deadly, heat-stripping chill while simultaneously creating a protected, stable microclimate in the very center of the camp. Most crucially, this central area became a literal heat trap. Because the wind was diverted over and around the structures, the air within the circle could remain several degrees warmer than the surrounding, exposed steppe. Into this protected core went the family's most valuable assets, the livestock. Each evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and temperatures plunged toward lethal, catastrophic levels, the herders would drive the sheep, goats, and young cattle into this sheltered center. Here we witnessed the most sophisticated, biological element of the entire survival system, the utilization of animals as both an active heating source and passive insulation. 100 sheep, clustered tightly together in a wine-blocked space, generate a substantial amount of collective, metabolic body heat. Their combined thermal output could raise the ambient temperature of the camp's center by 5 to 10 degrees Celsius. Furthermore, the mass of their physical bodies formed a secondary windbreak, a living, breathing barrier that absorbed and disrupted any residual wind that managed to pass over or between the outer ring of yurts. The arrangement was brilliantly symbiotic. The human structures protected the animals from direct wind exposure and rapid heat loss, while the collective body heat of the animals protected the humans from the full, unmitigated fury of the steppe winter. Where local materials allowed, these camp defenses were further reinforced with low, physical walls. Herders would stack loose stones, or even build barricades out of frozen blocks of dried animal dung, known as argal. These walls usually stood only waist high, but they served crucial aerodynamic functions. They disrupted the creeping, ground-level wind that could slip beneath the wooden frames of the yurts, and they prevented heavy, drifting snow from accumulating directly against the living spaces. Archaeological excavations of medieval winter campsites consistently reveal post holes and stone arrangements that confirm these defensive, circular layouts. The camps were inherently temporary, yet heavily engineered. They were designed for rapid, efficient construction upon arrival, and equally rapid dismantling when the spring thaw returned. Every single element, from the placement of a stone to the angle of a door, served one central, unyielding purpose, creating a sustainable pocket of survivable conditions. In one of planet Earth's most hostile environments, By the time December arrives, and the absolute worst of the cold settles over the region, the Curie has become a fortress of felt and flesh. It is a warm-blooded sanctuary, carefully arranged to turn the landscape's own features into an impenetrable shield. Against its fury, Part 3, the anatomy of the Gyr, aerodynamics and insulation. To truly understand how human beings survived -50 degrees, we must step inside a winter Gyr and examine one of humanity's most refined, ancient solutions to extreme cold. At first glance, the Gyr's distinctive shape, a circular base rising to a domed, conical roof, appears culturally traditional, but structurally, it represents thousands of years of aerodynamic refinement. When high-velocity wind encounters this specific geometric form, the air flows around the structure rather than pressing directly against it. The wind follows the curved surfaces smoothly, finding no sharp edges to grab onto and no large, flat walls to batter and eventually collapse. This low-profile design presents the absolute minimal surface area to the moving air, drastically reducing convective heat loss. But the aerodynamic shape was only the foundation. The true, primary defense against the freezing temperatures lay in the highly advanced insulation system. Winter Gyrs were not simply covered, they were wrapped in up to 12 distinct layers of thick, compressed felt. Even today, traditional Mongolian felt remains one of the most effective, naturally produced insulating materials ever developed by human hands. Felt is not woven, it is a dense, pressed matrix of interlocked sheep's wool fibers. This interlocking process creates millions of microscopic, trapped air pockets within the material. These trapped air spaces fundamentally resist the transfer of thermal energy. They maintain the vital temperature differential between the warm interior and the lethal exterior, a differential that literally meant the difference between life and death. The layers of felt were arranged with strategic intent. The innermost layers, closest to the living space, provided the primary thermal insulation. The outer coverings were designed to offer wind resistance and moisture protection. The very outermost layer was frequently constructed of thick canvas, thoroughly treated with animal fat or other natural waterproofing agents. This crucial layer prevented heavy snow, freezing rain, and ice from penetrating and soaking into the insulating felt beneath. Modern archaeological analysis of preserved felt fragments from these eras shows material so incredibly dense and so expertly crafted that many modern synthetic insulators struggle to match its pure thermal properties. In extreme conditions, at the very center of the Gyr lay the zoo, the central hearth. This formed the beating heart of the survival system. The iron stove or open fire pit was positioned directly beneath the roof's crown opening, the tonneau. This vertical alignment created a powerful, natural convection system. As the fire burned, the hot, lighter air rose straight up and escaped through the roof vent. This upward draft naturally drew fresh, oxygen-rich air in through carefully controlled, intentional gaps at the floor level. This continuous, vertical circulation of air was a masterstroke of environmental engineering. It entirely prevented the deadly buildup of carbon monoxide, a silent killer in enclosed, heated spaces, while efficiently distributing radiant heat throughout the small, circular room. In the winter camp, fire was synonymous with life. The central flame was maintained continuously, 24 hours a day, through the coldest months. It was fed exclusively with argal, dried animal dung. On the treeless steppe, wood was scarce, but argal burned incredibly hot, exceptionally clean, and produced minimal smoke. Families organized strict shifts to ensure the fire never, ever died during the deep night hours. When exterior temperatures reached their absolute, lethal minimums, the floor of the Gyr received equal, meticulous attention. In a frozen environment, direct contact with the ground can drain body heat just as rapidly and just as fatally as exposure to the wind. Therefore, the bare earth was covered with a complex foundation system. The base consisted of dried steppe grasses, acting as a preliminary barrier. Over this went multiple layers of older, thicker felt. Finally, the top layer consisted of heavy animal hides, placed fur side up. This insulated foundation completely prevented the permafrost from leaching the warmth out of anyone sitting, working, or sleeping inside the structure. Even the interior organization of the space followed strict thermal logic. Sleeping areas were always positioned far away from the doorway, where cold drafts inevitably entered. Beds were placed closer to the central fire and against the back wall, where radiant heat naturally accumulated. Dedicated storage areas held extra felt blankets and thick fur coverings, readily accessible to be added as emergency layers during the absolute worst, multi-day blizzards. The mathematical result of this engineering was astonishing. A well-managed winterger could maintain an interior environment that was 40 to 50 degrees Celsius warmer than the external air. When the steppe plunged to minus 50 degrees outside, the interior could remain a stable minus 10 or minus 5 degrees Celsius. While this is certainly cold by modern, central heating standards, it was entirely survivable for humans equipped with the proper, heavy winter clothing and multi-layered bedding. This was not a system designed for luxurious comfort. This was precision engineering designed for pure endurance, refined by families who understood that every single detail of their architecture could determine whether they would live to see the grass turn green again. Part 4. The Night Shift: Biological Survival. When the sun finally disappeared behind the vast horizon of the steppe, and the temperatures plummeted rapidly toward their nightly lows, the Mongol family's survival strategy shifted into its most critical, high-stakes phase, the night shift. Sleeping through the killing cold required a complete abandonment of modern concepts of privacy. In the winterger, privacy was a luxury that no one could physically afford. Entire extended families slept together in incredibly close quarters. They utilized the profound power of shared, radiant body heat, a biological strategy that could quite literally mean the difference between waking up to the dawn or quietly freezing to death in the dark. Parents, children, elders, and any visiting guests arranged their designated sleeping areas to maximize this collective warmth. They often slept so close together that they could physically feel the rhythm of each other's breathing. No one undressed for sleep. The Mongols slept fully clothed in their heavy, daily attire. The primary garment was the deel, a thick, heavy robe typically lined with sheepskin or fur, which provided massive insulation even while the wearer was lying completely still. Only the very heaviest, stiffest outer coats were removed, and rather than being hung up to freeze overnight, these coats were repurposed and piled on top of the sleeping family as additional, heavy blankets. The bedding system itself formed yet another distinct layer in the defensive stack against the cold. Sleeping platforms were built slightly up from the insulated floor using highly compressed, thick felt mats called shirdig. These mats created a vital air gap between the human bodies and the ground, further preventing the frozen earth from drawing away precious, metabolic heat during the long, static hours of the night. The primary coverings were heavy, dense fur blankets crafted from sheepskin, thick wolf pelts, or other robust animal hides. These specific materials were chosen because they effectively trapped a layer of warm air immediately close to the skin, while their sheer physical weight prevented any heat loss through convection or drafts in the tent. Families who possessed the resources utilized multiple, overlapping layers of these pelts, creating personal insulation systems that rival the thermal ratings of modern, high-tech Arctic sleeping gear. But perhaps the most fascinating and sophisticated element of this nighttime survival protocol was the deliberate integration of livestock into the human sleeping space. On the absolute coldest nights of the year, when the exterior thermometer dropped to minus 40 degrees Celsius or below, the youngest and most vulnerable animals, newborn lambs, small goat kids, and fragile calves, were physically brought inside the ger. These small animals were housed in a specifically designated area near the entrance door. They were placed close enough to add their continuous, metabolic body heat to the interior environment, but carefully positioned so their presence and movements did not interfere with the human sleeping areas near the back wall. The thermal contribution of these animals was highly significant. A cluster of a few dozen young animals could measurably raise the interior temperature of the tent by several crucial degrees, and in the strict, unforgiving mathematics of extreme cold survival, every single degree mattered. Their small, rapidly metabolizing bodies generated heat continuously, all night long, heat that would have otherwise been immediately lost to the vast, freezing void of the steppe if they had been left in the outer circle. This arrangement served multiple, vital survival functions simultaneously. First, the animal's radiant warmth actively helped the human occupants survive the night without falling into hypothermia. Second, the heavy shelter of the gyr ensured that the fragile, young livestock survived until the morning, directly protecting the family's future economic stability and food source. Finally, the shared, intimate space deeply strengthened the symbiotic, almost spiritual relationship between the herder families and their animals, a profound partnership that defined the entirety of Mongol life and culture. Sleep itself had to be learned as a deliberate survival skill. Families learned exactly how to position themselves to share the maximum amount of body heat, while ensuring that every individual still had access to the warmer air circulating down from the central fire. Small children, who lose body heat faster than adults, were purposefully placed directly between the largest adults to benefit from the highest concentration of warmth. The elderly, whose metabolisms generated less internal heat, received priority positioning closest to the central hearth and were given the heaviest, thickest fur blankets. Modern archaeological evidence recovered from ancient winter campsites frequently includes small animal bones intimately mixed with human artifacts near the central hearth areas, scientifically confirming these shared, multi-species sleeping arrangements. It was a practice born of absolute necessity, and it continued through historical periods, still observable in traditional nomadic communities during severe weather events today. By dawn, when the central fire was finally rebuilt to a roaring blaze and hot, salted tea was prepared. The family had successfully survived another night that would have killed an unprepared human being within a matter of hours. They had utilized their own metabolic energy, the heat of their animals, and their perfectly engineered, aerodynamic shelter to create a tiny, resilient pocket of life inside nature's Part 5. The Systemic Genius, the Whole Equation. When we analyze the Mongol winter survival strategy, we must recognize that every single element served multiple, overlapping functions within a holistic, closed-loop system. It is a level of environmental engineering that modern science is only beginning to fully decode and appreciate. Consider the fuel source. The dry dung fuel, the argal, wasn't simply used because it was the only combustible material available on a landscape devoid of trees. It was actually the mathematically superior choice. It burned at exceptionally high temperatures, but with minimal smoke output. This made it the perfect fuel for heating a highly enclosed, small space without creating dangerous, suffocating levels of carbon monoxide. Furthermore, its physical density meant that an entire winter's supply could be gathered, stacked, and stored in compact, organized piles that would not overwhelm the limited interior space of the camp. Even the aesthetic choices held hidden, structural purposes. The beautiful, intricate felt patterns and decorative stitching that adorned the outside of the gyrs appeared purely ornamental to foreign observers. However, they actually served critical structural engineering functions. The geometric, reinforced designs were specifically placed over known stress points where wind pressure naturally concentrated. The heavy stitching distributed the kinetic force of the wind across the wider felt covering, preventing the material from tearing or creating gaps that would allow the precious interior heat to escape. Additionally, the specific colors and bright patterns served as vital navigation beacons during whiteout blizzards, allowing individuals to visually identify their own shelters in conditions of near-zero visibility. The social organization of the winter camps also followed strict principles of thermal and economic efficiency. Closely related families purposefully positioned their gyrs to share the physical benefits of the windbreak while still maintaining their own independent heating and food systems. By clustering extended families together, they created a micro-community that could immediately support each other during medical emergencies, while strategically distributing the overall risk of survival across multiple, distinct households. The symbiotic relationship between humans and animals reached its absolute peak refinement. During these brutal winter months, the livestock provided everything necessary for human survival: the heat to warm the tent, the dung for the fire, the milk and occasional meat for intense caloric energy. and the raw wool and hides to build the shelter itself. In return, the humans provided the heavy shelter for the young, active protection from desperate predators like wolves, and managed the grazing routes that ensured the herd could find food beneath the snow until the spring thaw. The true brilliance of this integrated system was its ultimate mobility. It could be entirely dismantled, packed, and ready to move in a matter of hours when local weather patterns changed abruptly, or when the grazing conditions deteriorated and demanded relocation. The entire winter fortress was simply taken apart, packed onto the backs of sturdy horses and Bactrian camels, and moved to a more favorable location. No permanent stone infrastructure was left behind to be abandoned. No natural resources were permanently destroyed or wasted. When the camp moved, virtually no trace remained on the landscape to indicate that humans had lived there. This is not merely historical trivia. The precise engineering principles embedded in these survival systems directly influenced the military tactics, the extensive trade networks, and the vast political organization of the entire Mongol Empire. The exact same focus on extreme mobility, rapid deployment, and perfect environmental adaptation that enabled a family to survive a blizzard also enabled Mongol armies to execute rapid, unparalleled military movements across thousands of miles of hostile terrain. This deep understanding of survival logistics gave them strategic advantages that fundamentally shaped the course of medieval global history. Today, modern survival experts, military engineers, and Arctic researchers continue to study traditional Mongol shelter designs. The principles of their felt insulation techniques, their aerodynamic low-profile shapes, and their efficient, centralized heating systems are heavily analyzed. Contemporary emergency disaster shelters, specialized military cold weather gear, and even habitats designed for extreme environments incorporate the core thermodynamic principles that were first perfected by nomadic herders on the freezing Mongolian steppe. The psychological dimensions of the survival system were equally as sophisticated as the physical architecture. Families who possessed the knowledge and the equipment to maintain their traditional way of life through the absolute worst winters developed a profound, unshakable confidence in their ability to survive any environmental challenge. This deep psychological resilience supported tremendous cultural continuity, allowing their society to remain stable across centuries of political upheaval, warfare, and dramatic climate variations. The Zug, the catastrophic, mass extinction winter event that tested every survival system to its absolute breaking point, occurred roughly once every decade. When it came, it brought the deepest, most penetrating cold, the heaviest, most impenetrable snows, and the most persistent, blinding winds. This was when the Mongol winter camp system faced its ultimate, defining test. Archaeological and historical evidence suggests that while individual, less prepared camps might fail, the overall survival rate of the culture through these extreme, punishing events was remarkably high. It stands as a towering testament to the engineering sophistication of their entire way of life. Climate records preserved in ancient ice cores and the rings of old-growth trees confirm what the historians recorded. Mongol herders successfully survived winter conditions equivalent to those found in modern-day Antarctica, and they did it using only the natural materials they could carry on their animals and the deep, empirical knowledge passed down through generations of families who understood that their lives depended on absolute, perfect adaptation to their environment. The outrow, the adaptive mindset. Audio, the harsh sound of the wind slowly fades, replaced by the gentle, rhythmic sound of a crackling fire and a slow, reflective, stringed instrument playing a traditional melody. The narrator's voice becomes deeply contemplative. The Mongol winter camp was never designed for luxury, and it was never designed for comfort. It was meticulously engineered for something far more demanding: the total transformation of one of planet Earth's most hostile environments into a sustainable home. Consider the profound, scientific knowledge embedded in every single decision they made. The expert reading of landscape topography to find natural wind protection. The precise, thermodynamic mathematics of shelter placement to create warm microclimates. The advanced material science of compressed felt insulation, and the brilliant aerodynamic design of the the seamless integration of animal biology and human architecture into a single, unified survival mechanism. This was not primitive camping. It was a highly sophisticated form of environmental engineering that enabled a human civilization to flourish in conditions that would severely challenge our most modern, advanced technologies today. But the deepest lesson we can take from the winter steppe lies not just in the specific techniques they used, but in the overarching mindset those techniques reveal. The Mongols succeeded, century after century, because they never attempted to dominate or conquer their extreme environment. Instead, they became so perfectly, harmoniously adapted to it that they could carry their entire world with them. They could set up a fortress each night, pack it away each morning, and leave absolutely no trace of their struggle on the earth except for the families who survived to see another spring. Their mobile, felt-trapped winter fortresses prove that true mastery over nature does not require paving it over in concrete or fighting against the elements. True mastery means understanding the environment so completely that you become a functional part of it. It means finding brilliant ways to thrive within the strict rules of nature, rather than arrogantly attempting to break them. When the spring winds finally returned, warming the air, melting the heavy snows, and greening the endless grass, the thick felt walls of the camps came down. The livestock moved out onto the vast, open steppe, and the winter fortresses vanished as if they had never existed at all. But the resilient families who built them remained, carrying forward the vital, hard-won knowledge that had kept them alive through the coldest nights on Earth. In a modern world that is increasingly concerned with rapid climate change, shifting weather patterns, and the need for sustainable living, the ancient Mongol winter camp offers a profoundly different model for the future. It is not the rigid, energy-heavy building that stubbornly fights against the cold. It is the flexible, adaptive system that flows with it. It is about finding life, warmth, and community in the narrow, critical spaces between the killing wind and the frozen ground. They turned the brutal steppe itself into their shelter, proving once and for all that human beings can make a home absolutely anywhere, provided they understand the land deeply enough. We want to hear from you. How does the ancient ingenuity of the Mongol survival system change your perspective on modern architecture and extreme weather? What aspects of their adaptive mindset do you think we could use in our cities today? Please share your thoughts and reflections in the comments below. We read every single one, and your insights help fuel this journey. If you found value in this deep dive into human resilience, and if you believe in uncovering the forgotten brilliance of the past, please support this channel. Hit the like button to help the algorithm push this documentary to a wider audience. Subscribe to Homeless US and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next investigation into the incredible stories of survival, architecture, and the human spirit. Share this video with those who appreciate history and the power of human endurance. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your curiosity. We will see you in the next story. Together, we can make the invisible visible. This is Jack, signing off. Stay resilient,